Hello and welcome to this presentation delivered through South Dakota Parent Connection. My name is Chris Sellers and I am an outreach specialist here at South Dakota Parent Connection. Today's topic is on the development of social emotional skills, especially in young children. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Our objectives for today are to understand what social and emotional development is and why it is important for children, to learn how social and emotional skills begin in infancy and grow as children get older, recognize the difference between temperament and learned behavior and how behavior is shaped over time, to understand emotional awareness and self-regulation, including how children learn to manage their feelings, and to learn ways that caregivers can support healthy social emotional growth through everyday interactions. What is social emotional development? I'm going to back up just a moment and talk about all development for young children. So there are 5 stages of development that we track for young children. Those include cognition or cognitive skills, which is how they learn to think. It includes language, which is both expressive language, what they say, how they communicate, as well as receptive language. How do they understand language? It also includes adaptive skills, which are those everyday functional skills that we need to be able to get through our days, how we function throughout the day, such as eating and dressing, following directions, even things such as toileting and hygiene. And lastly, we're talking about social emotional development. It's really not last in the development of kids. It's a very important area of skill. But we want to just talk about how important it is and what we can do to really help children develop this skill. So we're going to look at these 3 areas of social emotional development. The first one is social interaction. This is the relationships we share with others, including relationships with adults and peers. The next one is emotional awareness, the ability to recognize and understand our own feelings and the actions of those of other people. And self-regulation, the ability to express thoughts, feelings, and behaviors in socially acceptable ways. Social interactions focus on the relationships we share with others, including relationships with both peers and adults. How do kids interact with adults in their environment? How do they interact with their siblings? And how do they interact with other children who are their age? As children develop socially, they learn to do things such as take turns, help friends, play together, and cooperate with others. So when you see some of these skills that develop in this area of social emotional skills, you can really recognize just how important these are for a child's development. It's very important to make connections in infancy. Healthy social growth happens when there is adequate love and nurturing. That is when babies develop trust and love. When emotional development is hindered, babies develop mistrust, indifference, when not given these resources. You can think about children who may have a parent or parents who are just really, truly not very good parents. That baby might lay in a crib and just not even cry anymore because they've learned that it doesn't do me any good. I don't get what I need when I cry. So I might as well just stop doing that. We also see that for children who have been perhaps in other countries in orphanages, or maybe children who have bounced around from foster home to foster home. They haven't had that true early connection with loving, caring parents or a parent that will help them get that beginning of good social emotional skills. When you look at these pictures, you can really see how important touching and talking and just loving a very young child, a baby is. And we know that. We know that those social interactions begin in infancy. So, how do we become intentional about bonding? You need to create positive social interactions just like these parents are, just being close and being loving, responding to cues for food, a diaper change, and sleep. We know that when those things are taken care of, the baby feels content and love. Singing to your baby, cuddling your baby, skin to skin contact. You see that in intensive care units for babies where they want that baby touching that either parent's skin just as soon as they can, and especially when they have medical issues. And eye contact, you want to look right into your baby's eyes and just that communication, they begin to develop those skills that they need for later in life. So, how is behavior learned? You can really take a look at this little stair step graphic and see what happens. What happens when a baby cries? Well, typically we pick it up and think about that baby. Yep, that worked. I cried, I was hungry, and I got picked up and fed. Baby cries again. We respond again. Learning has occurred. And so when you look at those stair steps, you think about how that baby begins to develop trust and love for the person caring for them. So think about, like I had mentioned earlier, the baby cries. Nobody picks it up. The baby cries again. Nobody picks it up. When that happens over time, the behavior we want from a baby to communicate to us what their needs are stops. And so that's where you see things like when kids have reactive detachment disorder, when those things have not happened for them. And that continues typically for life. When those things have not occurred early for children, then it's very difficult to recoup those social emotional skills later. Let's talk a little bit about temperament and learned behavior. Temperament is how a person is wired. They're born this way. It's the natural style a child brings into the world. Whereas learned behavior is what a person picks up from experiences. It develops over time through teaching, through modeling, and consequences. So this is really important to consider, and it matters because temperament is not misbehavior. Children don't need their temperament fixed, but they might need skills and supports and understanding if they have a type of temperament that is a little more challenging for some adults to handle. When adults recognize temperament, their expectations can become more realistic, their discipline can become more effective, and children can feel more understood rather than just feeling like they've done something wrong. We're going to look at there's 10 temperament traits. So think about maybe what your temperament is. Think about what your child's temperament is. You could even look at it, for example, if you're an educator viewing this or watching this, we always think about who's a good fit for my child when they go to next year for school. Temperament can make a difference. And if your temperaments are completely opposite, it does make it more challenging, but certainly not impossible by any means. So, activity level is the first temperament. It's the amount of physical motion during activities. Some kids have low activity, they're calm and they're slow moving all the way through to high activity, always moving. They don't like to sit still. The next one is approach and withdrawal, a person's initial reaction to new experiences. Some kids are withdrawn, they're slow to warm up, whereas other kids are extremely outgoing. They don't really have a fear of meeting new people. They'll talk to anyone. So just look at the difference in how that can affect how a child moves through time and how other people react to them. Adaptability, how easily a person adjusts to changes in routine and transitions to a different activity. Some kids are very slow adapting. They get upset with changes. Whereas other kids, it doesn't matter if it changes, it's okay. I'm fine. I don't care if I didn't get to have my lunch today till a half an hour later. I'm good. Or easygoing and flexible. They just simply are pretty lackadaisical about some things, which is good. Sensory sensitivity. How sensitive a person is at each of his sensory channels, such as touch, pain tolerance, taste, and smell. You think about a child, and I had a daughter who I felt like every single little thing was extremely painful for her when she was younger. And so when she finally did break her arm, I let it go for 3 days because I thought she was kind of overdoing it. But anyway, so it gives you an idea of kind of how you have to really be in tune to kids. Um, some kids might have a nail in their foot. Yow. And the next one is if they have a different kind of temperament. Dude, there is something in my foot. I thought I felt something. Some kids don't notice odors or smells, but we know that some kids or people, smell is a very reactive sense for them. Taste. Some people can't really tell the difference in taste. Some people notice tiny little variations. You know, um, maybe they like think about adults who love hot stuff and some people who just can't stand that. Sight and light. Some people can be very visually sensitive. Fluorescent lights are very bothersome. And so you think about our schools and how that's how kids are learning all day long. Um, Hearing and sound. For some kids, noise is no problem. And we know that some kids and adults are very sensitive to sounds. The fifth one is intensity of reaction, the amount of energy a person commonly uses to express their emotions. Some people are high intensity, they're dramatic. And some kids have low intensity and mild reactions, just kind of low key. The next ones, let's talk about number 6, destructibility. How easily a person's thought processes or attention are interrupted by things going on around them. And you might immediately go to a child with ADHD, and that's true, or an adult. Um, this is certainly different for them. So some people are super focused, not easily diverted, and as well as students, young children. Some people have high distractibility and are easily diverted. Persistence, the length of time a person continues to make an effort, especially when a task gets hard. Some people or students, kids, have low persistence. They just kind of give up easily, or they want to just stop what they're doing. Some people enjoy having to be challenged, and they high persistence gets them locked in. They just really like that. Quality of mood, the amount of pleasant, joyful, and friendly behaviors versus unpleasant, frowning, and unfriendly behaviors. So they kind of use Debbie Downer and Susie Sunshine, which I think is that's pretty good. So Debbie Downer, serious most of the time, just more contemplative about things. Whereas you move through the continuum, then you get to Susie Sunshine, who's usually in a good mood and happy all the time. Regularity, predictability of biological functions such as hunger, sleeping, going to the restroom. For hunger, some kids, it's unpredictable. You don't know when they're going to be hungry. They're an irregular eater. Some kids, it's predictable. They they want to eat there 3 times a day and have a snack in between, or they want food at the same time. Sleep. Some kids have no schedule, and some kids just get tired on schedule. It is 7:30 at night. I've had a long day. I'm tired. I want to go to bed. Elimination. Some kids just kind of want to, oh, I guess I better go. I've been holding it forever. Some kids, they're very consistent and they have a bottled moon at the same time every day. So that again is also a temperament trait. Emotional sensitivity. the ease or difficulty with which a person responds emotionally to a situation. So we can have kids or people who are insensitive, unaware of emotions, moving through to high sensitive, and they feel emotions strongly. It's the same thing for sensitivity to another person's feelings. Some people might be insensitive to that. Some people are highly sensitive to that. Some people are emotionally tuned out, where others are very emotionally tuned in. So when you look at all those different temperament traits, you can see how parenting has to be different for some children. Teaching has to be different for some children. We need to be flexible enough to understand children, to know where they are on that kind of grid for their temperament traits, and to really respond in a way that is best for them. When we look at how a child moves through the social horizon, just think about this a bit because it helps you to know if a child is having successful emotional growth or if maybe they're a little bit stunted or struggling in a particular area. And so, when you have a baby, a young child, they're pretty much right there with their immediate family, right in the center of that target. Just that's who's most important. That's about as far as it goes. And then as kids get a little bit older, they start to really enjoy being around extended family members and friends, maybe neighbors, cousins, things like that become more comfortable. Next, it might be going to friends' homes, going to the neighbor's house, going to daycare. They start to move out from that middle target and feel a little more comfortable. And then you get into community, whether that's going to church, going to the grocery store, going to restaurants. Um, that helps kids develop social skills. They're around more variety of people in different types of settings. And we did notice a shift in social emotional development for some children during COVID because some were very restricted to where they went during some kind of crucial time in their life where maybe then after COVID, it took them longer to figure out how to be socially comfortable around other people out in the community. I know sleepovers aren't always the thing these days, but you talk about moving out even further away from that center of the target, and it includes going to school, playing on playgrounds, just moving a little bit further away to where you don't always have parental supervision. So it just kind of shows how their social horizon expands, and it should. It's supposed to. And if it can't, or if it's not, then you might want to think about, okay, what's going on here, and what do we need to think about or do to help our child feel more comfortable in some of these different settings? How do we promote healthy social interactions? Interacting with children, their age will help children to mature in their abilities to socialize with others. So I had been an early childhood teacher, early childhood special education teacher, and it really is very interesting, but you absolutely see different levels of play. And so when you have a young child, just starting to sit up 6 months to a year, they play in isolation. They don't really care all that much who's around them, but they want to play on their own with their own toys. Parallel play is when kids are starting to sit closer together. They're kind of, they might start to share a little bit or look at each other and maybe giggle or do things side by side. And then we move into cooperative play. And that is where children begin to develop playing together by things such as, hey, let's go play house. You be the daddy and I'll be the mom. And then so and so is going to be our kid. Or out on the playground, let's play tag. You're going to be it first, and then we're going to take turns. That is how cooperative play starts to develop. So they really do go through those 3 stages of play. And those stages are very important. What we can do for our children to help them develop those social emotional skills are providing them with engaging environments. Children like to play with fun materials and show their toys to friends. It's really important to lay out fun items for your kids to choose what to play with. Some toys can just be right there from your home. Kids love bowls and wooden spoons and boxes, of course, things like that. And so just be sure you have good environments for kids to play. I've been into a couple, and I hate to say this, but a few daycares where kids are having a difficult time in the classroom. But when I really took a deep look at what was going on, they didn't have good things to use to really play and engage. Maybe the toys were all mixed together. There weren't complete sets of things. There wasn't enough to really do something with some of the toys. And so that becomes really frustrating for children. We want to model good relationships. Children learn from you. Young children learn to care for others with kindness when the adults in their life also show them that same thing. When kids see their parents react and interact with others in a positive way, that is how they learn to develop those good relationships. It's important to respond consistently to your child. Consistent positive responses help children feel supported and valued. So when your child wants attention, you need to respond. You may not always be able to give your full attention right away, but you can always show that you hear them. So, like if you're busy, you need to finish one thing, and your kid is kind of trying to interrupt. You just say, 1 more minute. Mommy just wants to finish putting this last dish in the dishwasher, and then I'm going to talk to you, honey. Just 1 more minute. I'll be right with you. Please be careful with phone use around your kids. As an early childhood person, I do notice when I'm out in public or even with family or friends that a lot of times kids are ignored and put off because we have developed such a love for our telephones or for our phones, our cell phones. And I'm guilty of it as well. And so be cautious of that. Please put your phone down and give your attention to your child. They know when you're not looking at them and you're not really truly paying attention. They know that. Let your child take the lead. Allow your child to choose a toy or a game. Let them follow their own interests and help them problem solve. For example, if kids are fighting over a toy, you might want to intervene immediately and just take care of the situation for them. But kids need to work things out on their own, and we can guide them, but our job is to maybe provide some suggestions for how they can solve that problem, and then maybe just back off a little bit and see how they do. But it is important to teach it. So if we're trying to teach turn taking, we can say, hey, you know what? Sister had it first. So let's let her finish. And Susie, when you're done, Bobby wants a turn with it then. So as soon as you're done, let him have a turn, please. So we can start to help them have words. So the next time they can say, hey, I'm still playing with it, but I'm done. You can have it, okay? I mean, we want to teach them those skills. Emotional awareness and self-regulation. And I think you can see that the two kids in the pictures I chose, for whatever reason, probably aren't having a really great time right now with their self-regulation. Let's talk a little more about that. Emotional awareness is the ability to recognize and understand our feelings and to understand the feelings of those around us. So it's the understanding of how our own feelings and actions affect ourselves as well as others. And I want to talk a little bit about how that all develops. So when you think about it, how does emotional awareness start to develop? Well, the adults in a child's world begin to start to name emotions out loud. We say things like, ooh, I see that you're angry right now. Or you are so happy that we got to do this. I love it when you're smiling and you're happy. Just to really start to use those words that state what an emotion is. So that when your child needs to label their own emotions they're feeling, they have the language to do that. We want to have calm responses during emotional moments. So we don't want to get into the same emotional level that our child might be feeling. We're the adult. It's our job to show calm and to help them then be able to calm. So when a child is amped up and having an issue with their social emotional skills, they're angry about something, they're mad about something, they're on the ground throwing a fit, that is not the time to teach anything. We want to get them calm, get them in a better state, give them time, and then later we can talk about what happened and what maybe to do next time. Providing predictable routines and safe relationships. That is just so obvious, but so important. I don't know that parents always understand how important predictable routines are, and just letting your child know when something's going to be a little off that day, just to prepare them so it's not a big surprise for them that they have to try and figure out how they're going to emotionally handle that. And we want to model emotional regulation for kids. So even if we're having a hard time as an adult, we can say, you know what? Mommy's feeling pretty sad right now. I'm just sad. Something happened today that made me feel that way. So sometimes when mommy's sad, her eyes might get tears and I might not be smiling as much, but I'm going to get better. I mean, just teach them what they're feeling so that they can express it when they are having those same feelings. What gets in the way of emotional awareness? Some of the things could be chronic stress or trauma. When kids have had chronic stress or trauma, there isn't a lot of trust. And therefore, they don't know how to express themselves appropriately. They've had too many other things that are negative that have happened in their lives that they just don't have those skills. It could be language delays. If a child is talking late, they might get really frustrated. And you know what they're going to do? They're going to hit, they're going to bite, they're going to scream because they're frustrated. And so we have to give them other ways at that time to be able to communicate in the best way that we can. It could be neurodevelopmental differences such as ADHD, autism, anxiety. Those are things that might cause children to struggle with their emotional awareness and their social emotional skills, but we still work on it in the same exact way we do for all children. It just might take longer. It might be more intense, but we still work on things in the same way. Perhaps expectations that are too high for an age. That's why it's really important to understand childhood milestones and development, because sometimes kids just aren't ready for certain things. When they're not ready, they're going to get frustrated again, or they're going to get mad. And that's when kids start to act out. It's not comfortable for them. So some of the takeaways for when you think about emotional awareness are that emotional awareness starts at birth. We saw that in some of the pictures I showed earlier, where you look at how important that nurturing and that loving is right away. It develops slowly and unevenly. It requires adult support for many years, and it's shaped by experience, not willpower. So, self regulation is the ability to understand and manage your own behavior and reactions. It includes the ability to regulate reactions to emotions like frustration or excitement, to calm down after something exciting or upsetting, to focus on a task, to refocus attention on a new task, controlling impulses, and to learn behavior that helps you have a good relationship with other people. Those are all self-regulation. So again, it's managing emotions, it's controlling impulses, focusing attention, calming the body and the mind, and using strategies rather than reacting. So think about how important that is for kids in school. When when it's a child who has very poor self-regulation skills, those are the kids that parents and teachers are going to get frustrated with. And those are the kids who are going to get in trouble and they're going to get angry. But those are the kids who need a lot of help and a lot of guidance and a lot of practice for learning strategies to self-regulate. We will get more into that in a couple of our other sessions that are going to follow this particular training that we're doing today. Set point. Think about a thermostat. Set point is that ability to maintain control, assess how you're feeling, and then make adjustments to get back to that point. So kids have, or everybody has their normal calm place in their body, and that's called their set point. Big feelings can push them away from that calm place. So if a child, like we have talked earlier, is mad, like you can tell this little boy is, they're frustrated, something is very upsetting to them, our job as adults is to help them feel safe and to guide them back. And we've got to do that over and over again until their brain learns how to do it on their own. So I'm looking at this little boy and whatever he's sad about or mad about, and I think kind of back in the old school days, you just need to knock it off and shape up. You're going to be fine. You think about someone telling you that as an adult, and I'd be pretty irritated. So I'm not sure why we think it's okay to say those types of things to children. So what are the things that we need to do to help children out? You got to think about that brain and the body like a thermostat inside them. Some children naturally stay calm most of the time, and some kids react strongly to small changes. Some kids need lots of movement. Some kids need quiet to feel settled. What are the things that your child needs to get them back to their set point? We know the first thing that they need is just calm and love. They don't need to be yelled at. They don't need to be told what they did wrong. They don't need to be told that you don't need to be acting like that. It is not going to do anything to help them at this point. We just need to stay calm and help them get back to that regular set point that they are typically at. So we can help them by comforting them, by having predictable outcomes and routines, helping them feel safe and connected, and then also practicing calming strategies over time. Sometimes kids, we talk a lot about breathing, and you've got to be at a certain age, but once they can't do it at this point where this little boy is, he's got to get a little bit more calm first. And what would have been best is to have him do some breathing strategies before he got here to where he is right now. But you just want to be able to practice things, use strategies that help that child get back to their set point. We all have it. Think about us in our everyday lives. Something gets us hot and angry, and we've got to work through that. We've got to just self-talk or do deep breathing, go exercise, take a walk, whatever it is that we do to get ourselves calmed back and back to our own set point. How and when self-regulation develops. So let's think about this a little bit. When a baby might be getting hungry or they just feel a little bit of discomfort, they might suck their fingers or a pacifier to soothe when they're tired or agitated. Toddlers are starting kind of to begin to wait for short periods of time. When they're younger, they can't wait at all. That's just not easy to do. It's just not typical for a toddler to be able to do. But as they get to be a little bit older toddler, they can start to wait for just a minute or two for whatever it is that they might want. Preschoolers are learning to play with others, to be side by side and get along. And school-age children are beginning to control what their wants and needs are. So when you think about self-regulation and kind of a timeline for children, for infancy, say 0 to 1 year, adults have to do the regulating for them at that point, unless they can suck their fingers or a pacifier. But they cannot calm themselves yet. They need caregivers to soothe them, to feed them, rock them, and comfort them. And then their brain, because of that, learns someone helps me feel safe. Toddlers, we just talked about, 1 to 3 years old or so. Those kids, we know they have big feelings, but not a lot of control yet. They have strong emotions. They have very little impulse control. Tantrums are normal, but adults can help them calm their bodies and talk through their emotions with them. That's really what we need to do at that age. For preschool age kids, kids that are about 3 to 5 years old, they can learn now with help. We can start trying some of those simple calming tools, like I had mentioned earlier, like maybe doing some breathing things. Maybe they've got a little spot that they like to go to that has some fun little things for them to maybe snuggle and hold that helps them get settled down. But they do still need reminders and they still need adult support. And sometimes nothing will help if kids are tired or overwhelmed. And we really need to remember that as parents or caregivers that sometimes you just got to cut them a break because nothing's really going to help if they're having those feelings. In early elementary, about 5 to 7 years old, there's some inconsistent control, but it's getting better. They can sometimes regulate on their own. They might remember some of those strategies they've learned. They still might struggle during stress or transitions, but they're getting better independently. But they do still need structure and support. In later elementary years, such as 8 to 11 years old or so, skills are now really beginning to improve in this area. They're better at using their coping strategies. They can still have impulsive behavior under pressure, and they do still need practice and adult guidance. But things are beginning to improve. Their language skills are better. They've learned strategies and techniques that work for them to calm and to overcome things that are making them upset. So if you're the parent of a super young child or two right now, it does get better. It really does get better, but it is our job to help them learn some of those good coping skills. When children develop emotional skills, they have confidence. They stay calm when they feel upset. They think before they act. They do what is expected, even when they don't want to. They are able to pay attention and avoid distraction. They're more able to stay focused on their goals. They can wait to get what they want. They are able to adapt to changes in their environment. They gain awareness of what others are feeling. And they're able to cooperate with others and keep friends. They may not be able to do all of these things with 100% perfection all the time, but they are much, much better. And when you look at this list of skills, think about an adult, think about a future employee, think about how incredibly important building and developing social emotional skills are for the success of children as they grow and become young adults. When I used to be an early childhood special education teacher, we always had transition meetings for kids when they were going into kindergarten. So we would meet with teachers and talk about the kids that they would be receiving and what some of their strengths were, what some of their needs were. And 100% of the teachers in our district said, we honestly don't care if they know their ABCs and 1, 2, 3s, because we're able to teach that. We're going to be working on that. But we really want them to be able to be a friend, to be able to get through the day without having tantrums and upset. Those social emotional skills for those teachers were far more important coming into kindergarten than any of the academic skills were. That's just how incredibly important developing these skills are. The National Center on Birth Defects and Developmental Disabilities under the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has a tracker that you can get because it really is important for parents or even daycares and schools to to know what the milestones are for children from birth up to 5 years. And this tracker, you can either get a booklet or you can do it online, but it gives really good information on tracking your child's development so that you know, is there something going on that I should be concerned with? I can see that in their language area, they've got about 3 areas or 3 skills that it shows that they should have, but they don't yet. Or in the social emotional area, my child's not really playing with other kids yet. They're not really talking back and forth very well yet. Those are some things it just gives you a really good indication of some things you might want to consider as a concern that then you could maybe reach out and get some support if needed. So if you do have concerns, it's important to talk with your family doctor or pediatrician. You can call us here at South Dakota Parent Connection. We are very, very willing to answer some of your questions and guide you in the right direction. And you can also talk with the school district because they can conduct an early childhood developmental screen, and that can help answer your questions that you might be having regarding your child's development. Social emotional growth takes time and it continues to develop into adulthood. The development of appropriate social emotional skills can boost your child's confidence and help them succeed in school, in work, and in life. I hope that this was an informative and interesting training for you as either a parent or an educator or whoever you might be, maybe a daycare provider. We really appreciate you being able to give us feedback. This helps us with our grant money to be able to deliver more trainings to people. So I do hope that you are able to fill this out. And also remember that there will be 2 more trainings following this one. And the second one will be called Understanding Red Flags in Your Young Child's Social Emotional Growth. The third one is called Social Emotional Skills, Strategies that Help Children and You. So I am so thankful and happy that you were able to join me here today. I hope that it was beneficial for you. And thank you so much for attending. We really appreciate it.